Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Off-season hurricane outlook and discussion time. This really is a winter storm discussion. A lot of people out there from, honestly, California all the way across the Gulf Coast over to the southeast and parts of the East Coast and Mid-Atlantic are going to be impacted by this. And so I wanted to produce a discussion kind of outlining some of the things that I'm looking at and to give you some guidance in terms of what to look for yourself. Try to help you sort of think for yourself and where to find information, because this has the potential, this storm system, to be a very high impact event, and in some areas that are not used to seeing such huge amounts of snow or sleet, and even in this case, in this time of year, rainfall. We talk about rain in the warm season, tropical cyclones, and even from systems that are not quite tropical cyclones, these depressions or tropical lows, or just, you get these areas of deep convection during the summer months, and even in the springtime. Houston has seen that. The Tax Day flood comes to mind, Memorial Day 2015, and then of course we had Harvey. But there are also other events that have impacted the Houston area. As an example, we know that's been the case here in Lafayette and even in southeast Louisiana. This area is flood prone, and especially in an El Nino or pseudo El Nino type pattern. So there's a lot of complex things going on. I basically want to give you my overview and basically also just sort of raise the red flag here that people need to be paying attention, because this has the makings of a very disruptive, high impact event, again, as the energy comes in here to Southern California and it drops in across the Gulf and then moves up and probably out. I don't think this one's going to be able to come up and bring a huge blizzard to the northeast. Those ingredients do not appear to be in play just yet. That could still change, but it doesn't appear to be the case this time. So we start out with this water vapor shot courtesy of Tropical Tidbits, and this shows us very nicely the structure of the atmosphere. You got this subtropical jet coming in with ample moisture energy, represented by what we see with this upper level low, and that's bringing some much needed rain to Southern California and elsewhere. And all of this will combine and scoot across, and you'll see this on the GFS animation that I'll show you in a minute, across the deep south here, the northern Gulf Coast, and then surface low develops off the coast of Florida, and then it should scoot out to sea instead of, again, turning the corner. That's the player. That's what we're looking at. This is the stage for what we have ahead over the next several days. The beauty of this is this was well telegraphed several days ago. The models are getting better, and the ability of people to read those models is also getting better, so we can see these things coming and be ready. A lot of talk about people posting snow maps, 7 days in advance, like people do with hurricane model output on deterministic runs. And I know there's a lot of folks that are very much against that because it's not in context, etc. But I would argue that the one good thing, at least it gets people talking about the weather. And, that can be positive, right? But so here we are. It's coming in the next few days. We're not talking about 7 days out. So here's what we have from the National Weather Service homepage. That's weather.gov. A great resource, by the way. This is one of the things I wanted to point out. Use this, weather.gov. If you pay your taxes here in the U.S., which you should, some would argue against that, but that's not what we're talking about today. You pay those taxes, you get this. This is the largest crowdfunding weather site there is. Ha. You get it, right? We have Patreon that supports, private sector people like me, and then taxpayers support the crowdfunding of this great resource, and it is, because you get all the information from the National Weather Service, and watch how this fills in over the next several days. It's going to be remarkable. So right now, the watches and warnings, obviously some inclement weather, unsettled weather in Southern California. Flood watches already posted here for southeast Texas, and for good reason. Some of the forecast discussions out of the WFOs, those are the weather forecast offices, as well as from individuals such as Jeff Lindner with the Harris County Flood Control District, indicating the potential for fairly rare high precipitable water values and the potential for flooding. Several inches of rain, and we know how the greater Houston area and surrounding region can flood. All right, so that's a big problem setting up for that area, maybe even some severe weather as well. So this is going to be a big time system, and watch how everything starts to fill in across this area in the coming days. So if you haven't known about really or visited weather.gov much, do it. All right, and you can put your zip code in right over here, and it gives you local information. All right, moving on along, some of the products from the National Weather Service. This is the quantitative precipitation forecast over the next several days, kind of all bundled, sort of a maximum of what, if you accumulated it all together, what would we have? Okay, this is not an exact, this is exactly what's going to happen, but it gives you an idea. It's guidance. And you see these bullseyes here down in Texas, more precip coming into the Pacific Northwest, and then, of course, this much-needed rainfall in parts of the desert Southwest and Southern California. And then a lot of this over here, especially in parts of the Piedmont and Western Carolinas. That could be a mixed bag, frozen, sleet, freezing rain, snow, maybe a lot of snow. And I know people want to know, well, how much is it going to snow? And you're going to have a lot of different answers to that question. I don't have those answers. It's very much like hurricane forecasting when people want to know, where is it going? And then I caution them and I ask, what do you mean by it? Are you asking about the core and the eye, or the entire hurricane with all of its impacts? And so when people ask that, I realize they mean the core and the eye, but they look at it as, well, if the core and the eye aren't coming to me, then I'm going to be okay. And in this case, the similarities to winter weather situations, just because you're not going to be in the bullseye, we're hearing a lot about Asheville over here, potentially having a foot of snow. And so everyone else is like, okay, well, that's going to happen in Asheville. That's the mountains. Well, if you have several inches of sleet over here in the foothills, or even in towards the triangle with some frozen precip, etc., it's still going to be a high impact event. How many people live in Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Greensboro, the Triad area, down into northeast Georgia from Atlanta, the I-85 corridor, Charlotte, Concord? Yeah, this is going to impact a lot of people. So trying to narrow down how much snow is there going to be in Huntersville, North Carolina, how much snow in Marion or Asheville or Boone or elsewhere, the suburbs of Atlanta perhaps, or eastern Tennessee. Don't so much worry about that as the overall huge nature to the disruptive impacts of this storm system. Look at the bigger picture and ask yourself, not how much snow am I going to get, but how is this going to affect me overall? That's the more important question, in my opinion. And you can get answers to that, again, at that weather.gov. Put in your zip code over here. It gives you a return page, and you get all kinds of information there. One of the other things that I am concerned about is coastal flooding. Again, folks in Charleston, along the Battery as an example, they're not asking how much snow they're going to get. They may wonder, hey, are we going to get some snow? But the bigger question that they should be asking, how much flooding could there be? Look at this guidance here, indicating in the major, which is above 8 feet, down the road here over the weekend between 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. on Sunday. Why? I'll show you. This is going to be a strong coastal storm, and they're having some serious flooding issues on a regular basis in that area, due to the sea level rise and other things going on. There is no escaping this fact. We can see it happening. Why it's happening, the root causes, that's an entirely different subject matter. What does matter, though, is, yes, it is impacting people and commerce, travel, etc. All right? So very important to note this right here. Coming up over the weekend, we'll watch this guidance as the overall storm system cranks up. We could have some flooding issues in the major category down there along the Charleston Battery, Charleston Harbor area. So please pay attention to that as well. And this could impact areas up and down the coast, not just Charleston. So again, southeastern parts of South Carolina, you've got your different meteorologists there from Ed Piotrowski to Jamie Arnold and the folks at WCIV out of Charleston, Dave Williams, and everybody that works behind the scenes, the weather producers, etc., television proper, and social media, the social media arm of what they do. Follow what they're saying, okay? They're going to be on top of this as well. Big time disruptive event and a lot of heavy rainfall. My area, Wilmington, North Carolina, will probably break the 100 inches barrier with this storm, or come really, really close. We're at, I think, 95 inches or something right now. So what does it look like here at the Tropical Tidbits again? The GFS, I'm just going to go through these. I think these are every 6 hours. So this is the initial setup, and hopefully you know your geography enough. California over here, East Coast Carolinas, Florida over there. All right? So the initial low pressure area sitting off here at the surface. You see your large, very expansive chunk of Canadian cold air. There's that high pressure area. This air is dense, very thick, and it oozes in like molasses, okay? And here's another extension of it that's kind of oozed down already. 28 degrees here in Wilmington this morning with heavy frost. The kids really liked seeing that on the grass. It looks like it snowed, Dad. It's like, well, no, it's actually frost from all the dew, D-U-E, to the high moisture content of the atmosphere around here. Due to the, D-E-W-D-U-E, to the high moisture content. See what I did there? All kinds of ways to use the American English language. But yeah, it was interesting to see, and it is because we had a lot of cold air that is drained out of Canada here, and more coming right out of the source region, draining down into the southeast, and that will hold in place east of the Appalachians, and it'll be set up for a heck of a storm system as we move along. So let's see what happens. This is the about 6 hours out, so let's just move it along here as we go through the day tomorrow. The rainfall, as indicated by the color codes, getting heavy here in Texas. Very, very heavy rainfall at times. That'll make travel difficult in a lot of big cities. I know I focused on Houston, but look at those yellows, oranges, and reds over a great deal of southeast Texas. Very, very impressive, but not in a good way. So take this seriously, folks, down here. Massive travel problems, flooding. You know the old expression, turn around, don't drown. Those low water crossings, come on, please don't go across those flooded roadways. It's just not worth it. And then here comes that chunk of cold air trying to set up and ooze down the east side of the Appalachians here and really make things messy as we get through the weekend. So as you see, we move along. The surface low riding right across or just south of the I-10 corridor there. Very typical of an El Nino setup. Southern storms, northern cold air, and there it comes. You see the precipitation type showing up, some blues and some pinks, mixed bag to snow, and then really important, onshore flow over here. Onshore flow. So low country of South Carolina up through the Outer Banks, Rodanthe, Nags Head, Soundside flooding. All of this is going to be a problem. So again, I will refer you to National Weather Service Morehead City, National Weather Service Wilmington, Raleigh. Use it. Weather.gov, your zip code, no matter where you live, you'll find some great information once that starts coming out in the form of hazardous weather outlooks, coastal flood statements, winter storm watches, all of it. That's going to be there at your fingertips as an augmentation. Use it with your trusted local meteorologist at your TV station or somebody on the internet that's exclusively on the internet. Use some of those folks as well. I tweet and talk about a lot of them. You know who they are. So let's move along. It really starts to crank up there. You know, if it was a different pattern and this were to just continue right up and then off like this, wow, what would we have? And, it's just a matter of time that that's going to happen. I don't think it'll be this situation. It's just more of a progressive pattern where everything's just going to kind of scoot on out to sea, and you can actually see that as I move this along. The low pressure area following my drawing perfectly. That was just great guesswork. I've seen this before, but I didn't know I was going to draw it so accurately. But yeah, you see how it doesn't come up the coast. Another low pressure area forms right off the Carolinas, and it too scoots on out to sea as cold high pressure comes down and sort of anchors itself for a period of time anyway. Bottom line, models are models, right? They're used for guidance. You've got so many variations, ensembles, the deterministic run, which is what I'm showing you here. So again, my best advice, I do this in hurricanes and I want to have it bleed over into winter storms, because when you get a winter storm threat of this magnitude, it ramps up the hype factor. It certainly does. People get excited about it, and that's both good and bad. Some people get anxious, okay, and I understand that. So I want to try to sort of put what I've learned in my hurricane work to use in these big winter storm events. And again, recapping, just try to help you think for yourself, where can I find information that's pertinent to me? And again, social media can be useful, but tap into those resources that are trustworthy and that put consistent information out that's easy for you to understand, but it's not sensationalized, and it's somebody who has an established record, okay? And you know who those folks are by now. And if not, ask me in the comments or send me an email. I'll be glad to help you, or direct me, or at me on Twitter, as they say. I'll respond and I'll let you know. By the way, it looks like I will be out doing some off-season winter storm work here. It's not hurricane season anymore, but we do have all these camera systems and so forth to deploy. So I'm thinking probably going to want to put one down in the Charleston Battery area to monitor that on the warm side, relatively warm. And then maybe something on the Outer Banks, we'll see. But I also want to have some equipment, these camera systems inland as well, of course, in the Piedmont and the foothills of North Carolina in particular. But that's a lot of geography to cover, a lot of area. So I got to figure out how I'm going to do all that in fairly short order, and then hunker down somewhere and not get out in it and get stuck or caught up in some massive traffic snarl. Get ready for that. That's coming. I'll tell you what, Charlotte, Atlanta, we'll see. It just all depends on where it sets up. But this has the potential of some massive traffic issues as well. And that's the point here, folks. A big-time, high-impact event, and you need to be ready for it and aware, first and foremost, and then make smart decisions. Use common sense and try to stay on top of it. So look, I'll do another discussion tomorrow in the afternoon, and I'll let you know what I'm thinking then. I just did a live version of stuff the other day, and yes, we will return to doing more live stuff in the future, but for something like this, I wanted to put it together fairly quickly and just focus on the graphics, etc. But I will be doing more live video discussions as we move along. I just felt for this it was appropriate to do the typical way, where it's just a screencast, and we get to what we need to see, where it's nice and sharp on the graphics, etc. All right, that's it for me for today. I'll be back again tomorrow with more, probably around this same time in the mid-afternoon. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, with some off-season winter weather talk for you. I'll be back with more tomorrow.